Dr. Yun Woo Kim stood at the edge of the colony. New Terra stretched before her, a world that had survived the impossible, a testament to human survival. Years had passed since the first mysterious encounter, since that moment when everything changed. Humans were not like other species. They were something else entirely. The colony around her was a living example of human potential. Rebuilt, reimagined, always changing, always growing. Destroyed buildings became new research centers. Damaged infrastructure transformed into advanced communication networks. Every challenge became an opportunity. She remembered the reports, the countless invasion attempts, the battles that should have ended in total destruction. But humans did something different. They survived. Not just survived. They thrived. Her computer displayed the latest galactic reports. Hundreds of species continued to try to understand humans. Scientific teams, military analysts, diplomatic researchers. Nobody could explain it. Humans didn't conquer. They didn't destroy. They didn't seek total control. They adapted. They learned. They grew. The colony around her was proof. Buildings that could rebuild themselves. Communication systems that could heal like living organisms. Defensive networks that thought like brains. Humans had turned an entire planet into a living, breathing system. More than a colony. More than a civilization. Something else. Dr. Kim compiled her final research report. The title was simple: Humanity, Beyond Species. Key findings appeared on her screen. Biological systems that rewrite themselves. Technological adaptation beyond known limits. Psychological resilience that defied understanding. A drive to survive that transformed every challenge. The Interstellar Coalition had tried to understand humans, to categorize them, to predict them. They failed. Because humans were not a fixed point. They were potential. Pure potential. Outside her research center, new colonies were being built. On dead worlds. On challenging planets. Locations that would kill most species. Humans saw opportunity where others saw death. They didn't just survive. They transformed. The final paragraph of her report was clear. Humanity is not a threat. Humanity is not a species to be controlled or understood. Humanity is a force of nature, constantly changing, always growing, never stopping. Distant stars shined, millions of worlds continued to spin, and humans kept moving forward, always forward, never stopping, adapting, surviving, becoming. The galaxy watched and wondered. The Interstellar Coalition emergency session was not going well. Representatives from 1,000 different species filled the massive circular chamber. Holographic displays showed battle reports, scientific analyses, psychological evaluations, all pointing to one impossible conclusion. Humans were different. Ambassador Seo Yeon Kim stood at the central platform. She was calm. Calm in a way that made the other representatives nervous. Around her, hundreds of alien species argued about what to do about humans. They are not a typical species, she began. The chamber went silent. Her presentation was simple, brutal, factual. Biological reports showed humans could survive conditions that would kill most species. Technological analyses demonstrated their ability to adapt faster than any known civilization. Psychological evaluations revealed communication skills that could destabilize entire military structures. The Rigel Collective representative spoke first, a massive creature with multiple eyes and a body that seemed to shift between solid and liquid states. They are a threat, the representative said. We must eliminate them. Seo Yeon didn't even blink. We've tried, she responded. Multiple advanced civilizations have attempted to destroy human colonies. All have failed. More images appeared. Invasion reports. Conflict summaries. Each one showed the same pattern. Humans did not just survive. They transformed every conflict into an opportunity. The Orion sector representative tried another approach. They are not interested in peaceful cooperation. They resist. They fight. Another hologram appeared, this time showing human colonies, not military bases, not weapon platforms, but communities, schools, research centers. Humans are not looking to conquer, Seo Yun explained. They are looking to survive, to understand, to grow. The data was clear. Humans were not like other species. They did not want territory. They did not want total control. They wanted something more complicated. Freedom, understanding, the ability to choose their own path. More reports filled the screens. Humans had been invited to join the Interstellar Coalition multiple times. They always refused, not aggressively, not with anger, just with a simple request to be left alone. But alone for humans did not mean isolation. It meant the freedom to develop, to grow, to become something new. The Krell representative finally spoke, the same species that had failed to destroy human colonies multiple times. What do we do? They asked. Seo Yun's response was simple. We learn to coexist. The chamber went silent. Coexistence was not something most galactic species understood. Most wanted control, domination. Humans wanted something else. A chance. To be themselves. To grow. To survive. The holographic displays continued to spin, showing reports, analyses, scientific evaluations, proving one simple fact. Humans were not just another species in the galaxy. They were something more, and nobody knew why. Outside the coalition chambers, billions of stars continued to shine. Millions of species went about their lives, unaware that the most dangerous thing in the universe might not be a weapon. It might just be human potential. The Battle of New Terra would become a legend. 500 alien warships against a single human colony. Odds that should have meant total destruction. Numbers that looked impossible to survive. Captain Jimin Park watched from the underground command center. The colony's defensive systems were unlike anything in galactic military history. When the first wave of attacks came, most species would have surrendered immediately. Humans did something else entirely. The initial orbital bombardment was massive. Energy weapons that could turn cities into dust. Plasma cannons that could melt entire continents. The kind of attack that would eliminate most civilizations in minutes. New Terra didn't just survive. It fought back. Every destroyed building became a weapon. Damaged infrastructure turned into defensive positions. The humans didn't just defend. They transformed the entire planet into a living, breathing combat system. Communication networks that should have been destroyed remained active. Somehow, impossibly, the colony maintained coordination. Alien ground units expected an easy victory. They found a nightmare instead. Makeshift weapons appeared everywhere. Broken vehicles became mobile defense platforms. Communication towers transformed into signal jammers. The colony's entire infrastructure became a single integrated fighting system. Captain Park watched the tactical displays. Each alien attack was met with a response that defied military logic. When the aliens destroyed a communication center, backup systems appeared within minutes. Not just backup. Improved systems that learned from the attack. Defensive positions weren't just repaired. They were reimagined. The alien commander, a massive creature named Vortak, couldn't understand what was happening. His battle plans meant nothing. Every strategy fell apart the moment it was implemented. Humans didn't fight like other species. They adapted. Real-time. Continuous. Brutal. Vortak's massive fleet began to break apart, not from direct combat, but from the impossible resistance of a single human colony. Communication between alien units became confused. Their perfect military machine was falling apart. Backup systems appeared where they shouldn't exist. Defense networks rebuilt themselves faster than they could be destroyed. The humans were turning the entire planet into a weapon. By the third day, the alien invasion force was in complete retreat. A colony that should have been destroyed in hours had not just survived. It had transformed an entire invasion into a total strategic defeat. The final report was simple and terrifying. Battle Isumemmeroi, New Terra Colony. Initial invasion force, 500 alien warships, human defensive units, estimated 5,000 personnel. Outcome, complete alien retreat, casualties, minimal human losses. Captain Jimin Park reviewed the final reports. Something was very wrong with humans. They weren't just a species. They were something else entirely. Outside the command center, the planet continued to rebuild. Faster than possible, more efficiently than logical. The galaxy watched and wondered. Dr. Yunji Choi stared at the data screens. Her research lab was quiet, but the information told a loud story. Humans were not like other species. Not at all. Most civilizations develop technology slowly, step by step. Careful progress over hundreds of years. Humans were different. She pulled up a comparison chart. Weapon systems captured from different conflicts. Each one told a strange story of rapid innovation. Take the plasma cannon developed by the Krell Imperium. A massive weapon, designed to destroy entire cities in seconds. The first human colonies hit by this weapon did something impossible. They didn't just survive. They studied the weapon. Within weeks, modified versions of the same technology appeared in human defensive systems. Not copies, improvements. Radical redesigns that made the original weapon look like a child's toy. Yunji traced the technological progression. Most species would take decades to understand an advanced weapon system. Humans did it in days. More examples filter screens. Communication jamming technology, developed by the Orion Collective to disable enemy networks. Humans not only countered it but created communication systems that could work through the jamming. Energy shields used by the Rigel Defense Force, designed to stop most known weapon types. Humans found ways to break through these shields within hours of first contact. It wasn't just about copying technology. Humans reimagined technology. They didn't just learn. They transformed. A captured transport ship showed the most incredible example. The original design was from an alien species with completely different biology. Humans not only learned to fly it, but modified its entire internal structure to make it more efficient. Most species would have struggled to even understand the basic controls. Humans turned it into something new. Her computer tracked another disturbing trend. The speed of human technological adaptation was increasing. Not linear. Exponential. Each conflict made them faster, smarter, more innovative. Yunji pulled up a final set of data, a comparison of technological development across known galactic civilizations. Most species showed small, careful improvements. Humans showed something else. Explosive, unpredictable, brilliant. They didn't just learn from technology. They seemed to communicate with it, understand it in ways no other species could. A message blinked on her screen. Another research team wanted her analysis. She began to type her report. Sub-GCT, Human Technological Adaptation. OBS or VHON. Humans demonstrate an unprecedented ability to not just understand advanced technology, but to fundamentally reimagine and improve it at speeds that defy current scientific understanding. Key EYFINDINGs. Ability to reverse engineer complex systems within days. Technological improvements that transform original designs. Adaptive learning that increases with each technological encounter. Complete disregard for established technological limitations. Humans are not just users of technology. They are something more. Outside her laboratory, the galaxy continued to spin. Millions of species went about their lives, unaware that the most dangerous technology was not a weapon. It was human imagination, and nobody knew why. The interrogation room was small. Cold metal walls, bright lights, a single chair where a human prisoner sat. Sam Ho Park watched from behind the observation glass. He was the Interstellar Coalition's top intelligence analyst, and right now he was watching something impossible happen. The prisoner was a human captured during a recent conflict. No name, No rank, just another soldier from another destroyed colony. At least, that's what the initial reports suggested. The interrogator was a Zarkon specialist. Tall, muscular, covered in scales that shifted color when emotions change. They were known across the galaxy as the best at breaking prisoners. This human would be different. The interrogation began. Standard questions, basic information. The Zarkon asked about colony locations, troop movements, strategic information that would help them plan future attacks. The human smiled. Not a scared smile, not a defeated smile, but the kind of smile that made experienced interrogators nervous. "Would you like to hear about my grandmother?" the human said. The Zarkon interrogator was confused. This was not part of any standard resistance training. Prisoners were supposed to resist, to be silent, to protect information. This human wanted to talk, and talking became a weapon. The human began telling a story about growing up on a colony world, about building community, about survival. Each story was carefully designed, each word chosen with precision. The Zarkon didn't realize it, but the human was mapping their emotional responses, learning, watching how they reacted to different types of information. Some Ho watched the recordings later. It was like watching a chess master play multiple games at once. The human wasn't just resisting interrogation. They were studying the interrogator. Hours passed. The Zarkon became more confused, more frustrated. The human remained calm, telling stories, asking questions, turning the interrogation into something else entirely. By the end of the session, the Zarkon interrogator was the one who felt like a prisoner. Sung Ho pulled up the psychological evaluation. The results were extraordinary. The human had identified 17 specific emotional triggers in the Zarkon's communication style, redirected conversation multiple times to control information flow, created emotional confusion without revealing any actual strategic information, maintained complete psychological control of the interaction. Most species would break under intense interrogation. Humans transformed interrogation into a weapon. More reports came in. Similar incidents across multiple conflict zones. Humans captured by different species all showed the same pattern. They didn't just resist information extraction. They turned the entire process into a method of gathering intelligence. Communication was their true weapon. Sung Ho compiled his report. The title was simple: Human Communication Beyond Traditional Understanding. The galaxy was discovering something terrifying about humans. They didn't just survive physical conflicts. They could win wars without firing a single weapon, just by talking. Outside the research center, stars continued to shine. Millions of species went about their lives, unaware that the most dangerous weapon in the universe might not be a gun. It might just be a conversation. The Krell Imperium believed in total war. Their massive battleships stretched across the Orient sector, blocking out stars. Thousands of weapon platforms, millions of combat units, an invasion force so large it had destroyed entire civilizations before. They were going to eliminate the human colonies, completely and forever. Commander Tackler stood on the bridge of the main battle cruiser. His scaled hands gripped the command console. Intelligence reports suggested this would be a simple operation. Locate, destroy, move on. The first wave of attacks began. Plasma cannons fired, energy weapons that could melt entire cities in seconds. Massive ground units dropped from orbital platforms. Thousands of robotic soldiers prepared to eliminate everything in their path. The human colony on New Terra looked like any other target. Flat plains, some buildings, defensive positions that looked almost laughable compared to the Krell invasion force. What happened next would be studied for generations. The first wave of Krell ground units approached the colony's outer perimeter. Satellite imagery showed nothing special, just another human settlement waiting to be destroyed. Then the ground moved, literally moved. Hidden defensive systems emerged from the ground. camouflaged weapons platforms that had been buried beneath the soil. The colonists hadn't just built defenses. They had turned the entire planet into a weapon. Automated systems, manual overrides, networks that could redistribute power and communication faster than the Krell could destroy them. The first Krell units were destroyed before they could even fire a single shot. Commander Taklar watched in disbelief. His tactical displays showed impossible readings. The humans weren't just defending. They were fighting back in ways no species had ever done before. Destroyed infrastructure became new weapons. Damaged communication towers were rebuilt into signal jammers. Broken vehicles were turned into makeshift defensive platforms. The Krell had total air superiority, orbital bombardment capabilities, weapons that could destroy entire cities in minutes. The humans used this against them. Every destroyed building became a new fighting position. Every fallen vehicle became a source of parts for new defenses. The colonists didn't just survive. They transformed the battlefield itself. Taklar watched as his most advanced units were defeated by what seemed like pure improvisation. Humans would use anything as a weapon. Communication cables became tripwires. Broken machinery became explosive traps. The invasion that was supposed to take hours was now in its third day. And the humans were winning. Not by having better weapons, not by having more soldiers, but by understanding the battlefield in a way no other species could. They didn't fight the invasion. They absorbed it, changed with it, turned every Krell advantage into a human opportunity. Communications between Krell units became confused. Their perfect military machine was falling apart. Humans communicated differently, adapted faster, thought about warfare in ways the Krell couldn't understand. By the end of the week, the Krell invasion force was in complete retreat. A colony that should have been destroyed in hours had not just survived. It had transformed an entire invasion into a total strategic defeat. Commander Taklar stared at the battle reports. Something was very wrong with humans. They weren't just a species. They were something else entirely. And nobody in the galaxy understood why. Dr. Hai-Jin Quan stared at the genetic sequence. Her laboratory was silent except for the soft hum of advanced scanning equipment. She had been working for months, and now something incredible was becoming clear. Human DNA was not normal. Not normal at all. She compared slide after slide. Human genetic samples from different planets, different environments, different conflict zones, and each time, the same impossible pattern emerged. Most species had stable genetic structures, predictable, unchanging, a blueprint that remained constant across generations. Humans were different. Their genetic code looked like it was constantly rewriting itself. Hai-Jin pulled up another set of medical records. A human soldier wounded in the Orion conflict. Massive tissue damage. Radiation exposure. Conditions that would kill most species instantly. The medical report showed something impossible. Complete recovery. Not just healing, not just survival, but total regeneration of damaged tissues. Cellular structures that rewrote themselves faster than any known biological system. She remembered the research from her advanced xenobiology classes. Most species had limits, biological walls that could not be crossed. Humans seemed to ignore these walls completely. Take radiation exposure. Standard galactic protocols suggested that any creature exposed to more than 500 rads would die quickly. Humans had documented cases of survival at 2,000 rads. Not just survival, active resistance and recovery. The computer beeped. Another comparison was complete. Human immune systems were another mystery. They didn't just fight diseases. They learned from them, adapted to them, transformed themselves to become stronger with each encounter. Hai-Jin pulled up comparative charts. Other species would develop specific antibodies. Humans developed entire new cellular defense mechanisms. It was like their biology was alive, thinking, changing. She zoomed in on cellular samples. Most species had steady, predictable cellular division. Humans had something else, cells that could completely change function. tissues that could reorganize themselves. A muscle cell could become a nerve cell. A damaged organ could restructure itself using nearby healthy tissue. The implications were terrifying. Most species were locked into their biological design. Humans were fluid, changeable, adaptable in ways that broke every known biological rule. Her communication panel lit up. A message from the research director. They'd wanted a full report on her findings. Hai-Jin hesitated. How could she explain something that defied everything science understood about life? She began to write. Sub-GCT, Human Biological Anomalies. Observation. Human biological systems demonstrate unprecedented adaptive capabilities that challenge fundamental understanding of cellular life. HFY Stories. Cellular restructuring beyond known limits. Adaptive immune responses that create new defense mechanisms. Genetic code that appears to be constantly evolving. Ability to survive and recover from conditions that would eliminate other species. Humans are not a typical biological species. They represent a fundamentally different approach to life itself. Outside her laboratory, the galaxy continued to spin. Billions of species lived their lives, unaware of the biological marvel that was spreading across the stars. Humans kept changing, kept adapting, kept surviving, and nobody understood why. The Interstellar Coalition Archive stood as a massive circular building on the central administrative planet of Nexus Prime. Massive data crystals stretched from floor to ceiling, storing millions of years of galactic history. Sung Min Lee moved carefully between the towering information banks, his fingers trailing along carefully maintained data interfaces. As the Coalition's senior historical researcher, Sung Min had spent decades combing through records. But today felt different. Something had been nagging at him for weeks, a pattern he couldn't quite explain. He pulled up another set of historical records, colony reports, invasion logs, planetary destruction records. And there it was again. Humans. Every single time humans were involved in a conflict, something strange happened. Other species would be completely wiped out after a major invasion. Entire planetary populations would vanish. But not humans. Sung Min began collecting data points. He created a holographic display that filled the entire research cubicle. Red lines connected different data points. Blue markers indicated human colony locations. Green markers showed invasion sites. The pattern was impossible to ignore. Take the Rigel conflict of 2342. The Krell Imperium had launched a full-scale invasion of 3 human colonies. Standard reports suggested total destruction. But follow-up surveys showed something else entirely. Destroyed cities. Yes. Massive casualties. Absolutely. But somehow, impossibly, humans remained. He pulled up images from the aftermath. Burned-out buildings. Destroyed infrastructure. And yet, signs of rebuilding were everywhere. Makeshift shelters. Temporary communication networks. Emergency supply lines. Other species would have been completely finished. Humans just adapted. Sung Min zoomed in on another conflict. The Orion Sector incident. An entire human colony had been hit by a quantum weapon designed to completely eliminate biological signatures. Standard procedure would mean total extinction. But the colony reports showed something different. Survivors. Not just a few. Not just survivors hiding in bunkers. Active resistance. Rebuilding efforts. New defensive positions constructed from the remains of the destroyed infrastructure. His computer flagged another interesting detail. Resource allocation reports showed that human colonies received significantly less initial support from the Interstellar Coalition compared to other species, yet they consistently showed the highest recovery rates. A message blinked on his communication panel. Dr. Helena Rodriguez from the Xenosociology Department wanted to see him. Sung Min knew she had been tracking similar patterns. He saved his research and prepared to leave. The holographic display continued to spin, showing the impossible story of human survival. Something was very wrong with how the galaxy understood humans. The archives were quiet, but the data screamed a warning. Humans were not like other species. They were something else entirely. As some men walked out, he didn't notice the small data crystal that had fallen beneath his research table. It rolled slightly, catching a beam of artificial light. The label was partially visible. Sci-Fi, Human Adaptation Protozoas. Outside the archive building, the galaxy continued to spin. Billions of species lived their lives, unaware of the growing anomaly. Humans kept surviving, kept adapting, kept pushing forward, and nobody seemed to be asking why. In the deepest levels of the Interstellar Coalition's most secure database, a file marked Threat ASCCSSMENT, human species began to compile new information. Slowly, carefully, waiting. The pattern continued. Humans survived. Dr. Yun-Woo Kim stood at the edge of the colony. New Terra stretched before her, a world that had survived the impossible, a testament to human survival. Years had passed since the first mysterious encounter, since that moment when everything changed. Humans were not like other species. They were something else entirely. The colony around her was a living example of human potential. Rebuilt, reimagined, always changing, always growing. Destroyed buildings became new research centers. Damaged infrastructure transformed into advanced communication networks. Every challenge became an opportunity. She remembered the reports, the countless invasion attempts, the battles that should have ended in total destruction. But humans did something different. They survived. Not just survived. They thrived. Her computer displayed the latest galactic reports. Hundreds of species continued to try to understand humans. Scientific teams, military analysts, diplomatic researchers. Nobody could explain it. Humans didn't conquer. They didn't destroy. They didn't seek total control. They adapted. They learned. They grew. The colony around her was proof. Buildings that could rebuild themselves. Communication systems that could heal like living organisms. Defensive networks that thought like brains. Humans had turned an entire planet into a living, breathing system. More than a colony. More than a civilization. Something else. Dr. Kim compiled her final research report. The title was simple. Humanity. Beyond Species. Key findings appeared on her screen. Biological systems that rewrite themselves. Technological adaptation beyond known limits. Psychological resilience that defied understanding. A drive to survive that transformed every challenge. The Interstellar Coalition had tried to understand humans, to categorize them, to predict them. They failed. Because humans were not a fixed point. They were potential. Pure potential. Outside her research center, new colonies were being built. On dead worlds. On challenging planets. Locations that would kill most species. Humans saw opportunity where others saw death. They didn't just survive. They transformed. The final paragraph of her report was clear. Humanity is not a threat. Humanity is not a species to be controlled or understood. Humanity is a force of nature, constantly changing, always growing, never stopping. Distant stars shined, millions of worlds continued to spin, and humans kept moving forward, always forward, never stopping, adapting, surviving, becoming. The galaxy watched and wondered.